Repairs to City Lake Dam had some major unexpected price hikes. Retired Ardmore firefighters are being called to help archive local history, and the city's Parks Department will be wrapping up July with a water balloon fight. These stories and more on This Week in Ardmore from Ardmore Leader. I'm News Director Michael Dean Smith, and thank you for downloading episode 72 of This Week in Ardmore. This is a weekly podcast from Ardmore Leader dedicated to independent coverage of local news. This week's episode is sponsored by Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall, 105 East Main Street. Let's catch up on what I've been following around Ardmore, Oklahoma for the week of July 24th. The cost to upgrade and repair City Lake Dam ballooned to over $9.4 million this week, after the Ardmore City Commission on Monday approved an emergency change order. Public Works officials told commissioners that crews discovered that the century-old structure is not sitting on solid concrete like originally thought, but is instead on shifting sandstone and shale that's encapsulated by concrete. Commissioners originally awarded an $8 million bid late last year in an effort to repair one of the oldest earthen dams in Oklahoma. This week's change order has now pushed the project closer to its $12 million budget cap. The Ardmore City Commission also had some public safety spending to consider this week. That cyber attack back in April that locked city officials out of months' worth of locally stored police data has prompted tech officials to move that service out of Ardmore and to a third party. Spending was also approved for interview room recording equipment for the new Ardmore police station. Commissioners also this week approved spending for police and fire vehicles. Commissioners also gave approval for Ardmore Police Department to apply for a state grant that, if approved, would be earmarked for the city's supplemental license plate readers and gunshot audio detection network. The Ardmore City Schools Board of Education met this week by the slimmest of margins for their monthly meeting. Only 3 of the board's 5 members were on hand for this month's meeting, with board members Jimmy John and Steve Oliver absent. District Superintendent Andy Davis said that work continues on the high school campus after it was severely damaged by geothermal unit flooding back in March. Crews are expected to return to campus next week, with the restoration project expected to continue through October. Ardmore firefighters are calling on their retired predecessors to stop by Fire Station Number 1 to sign a custom-made book. The massive leather-bound binder currently only has a few page protectors with a list of retired Ardmore firefighters dating back about 120 years. But an Ardmore Fire Department captain told me this week that he hopes that book will turn into a collection of local firefighting history. The current goal is to have every living retired AFD firefighter sign their place in that book, which was hand-cut and painted just for the department by current AFD firefighter Dallas Scribner. Hey, some of these stories are in the Ardmore Leader weekly newsletter that's out today. You can find it at a handful of downtown businesses, or you can get it delivered to your email inbox for free by visiting our website, ardmoreleader.com. You can join, over 110 of your neighbors in getting an independent look at local news and events delivered straight to your email inbox for free. No annoying spam emails, no subscription fees. We're not selling your address. We just want more people to see this professional newsletter with things that you can't see on this podcast. Plus, you can learn about even more local businesses that are showing their support in advancing local news. In that printed newsletter this weekend are 2 Dixon High School students who spent a week this summer at Oklahoma Boys State and Oklahoma Girls State. Ava Gibson and Parker Shaw each attended the events back in late May, where they learned about local and state government by running mock campaigns and government functions for some hands-on civic lessons. This annual event, sponsored by the American Legion of Oklahoma, actually dates back to the 1930s and 40s. Now, these annual camps are aimed at teenagers entering their senior year of high school. Also in the newsletter this weekend, we have a column from Ardmore Leader co-owner Connor Choate about an embarrassing experience I think any self-aware parent in the last decade has experienced, and that's doom scrolling in front of the kids. Connor writes about his choice to do something that some might see as a drastic measure, ditching the smartphone for something less smart. What are your thoughts on smartphone culture? Read Connor's column on the newsletter or online, then let us know what you think by checking out the opinion page of our website and sending a letter to the editor. In just a moment, we'll take an in-depth look at the Ardmore City Commission this week. Then Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele will be wrapping up the news with his Edward Jones Market Snapshot commentary from Friday. This week, Cody looks at how major international news around Iran and the U.S. imposed tariffs have impacted financial markets this week. And then stick around until the very end of the podcast because every episode of This Week in Ardmore wraps up with the schedule. As always, I have details about upcoming public meetings. I also have some information about Plainview enrollment dates and some of the details about the recreation events happening at Ardmore City Parks this month. But anyways, that's the headlines. Thanks again to Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall here in downtown Ardmore for the support. I'll tell you more about them right after we dive into what I've been following this week in Ardmore for the week of July 24th, 2026. Big spending was in focus at City Hall this week as unstable ground beneath a century-old dam has forced city commissioners to approve an emergency cost overrun to prevent the potential loss of City Lake. Other spending considerations during this week's Ardmore City Commission meeting focused heavily on public safety, especially after a data breach back in April locked out city workers from vital police data. The Ardmore City Commission on Monday approved an emergency $787,000 change order for the City Lake Dam repair project after crews found that it rests on shifting sandstone and shale instead of solid concrete. This discovery has forced workers to rebuild some 72 feet of a weir wall from the bottom up. Here is City Public Works Director Melissa Lang from the city's meeting live stream on Monday.
When they started digging, we talked about a month ago the things they were finding. So when they did these core samples several years ago, they could only go so far without damaging the integrity of the dam. So they just thought it was all concrete because the top part was. They got further whenever they started digging things out and realized it's sand rock and shell. So to attach the new rear wall to that, of course, we all know that it would not be stable, obviously. So now we have 72.59 feet of where they're going to have to take all of that out and redo basically from the ground up.
Interim City Manager Sean Guerin warned that any delays to the emergency change order could have forced the contractors to abandon the site, potentially eroding the current dam and draining the lake. A second change order approved on Monday for over $190,000 has helped balloon the project costs to nearly $9.5 million. Commissioners in November of last year approved the original $8 million bid, with this much change order pushing the project closer to its roughly $12 million budget cap. Public safety spending took up much of Monday's Ardmore City Commission meeting this week, with discussion about state vehicle purchasing contracts, a computer-aided dispatch system, police interview room recording equipment, and a grant to pay for flock security equipment. Commissioners on Monday agreed to spend about $450,000 to migrate police dispatch and record software to a cloud-based system. This move comes after an April cyber incident on city-owned servers that encrypted several months of city data, effectively locking out local officials. Ardmore Chief Information Officer Rob Newell told commissioners on Monday that the city has hosted many computer-based services on local hardware, which means local IT staff must maintain that hardware and software deployments. Moving the city's computer-aided dispatch system from an in-house server to an outside management agency is expected to remove maintenance and security burdens for city staff. Here is Chief Information Officer Rob Newell on Monday.
The technical justification is it becomes much more secure. We did have our breach back in April, which the data that was affected was that data. It's as secure as it could be in this solution, and the contract puts the burden upon them to protect it and keep it active.
Commissioners also had other public safety spending to consider during Monday's regular meeting. Ardmore Police asked to apply for a Safe Oklahoma grant earmarked for gunshot audio detection equipment and automatic license plate cameras that are part of the city's flock safety network. Commissioner Buddy Simon approved of the department applying for grant money, but he asked if any future grant award would have to be returned if the city later decided to not continue the program. Here's Commissioner Buddy Simon on Monday.
I'm all about you applying for a grant. I think that everybody in this city needs to apply for all the grants we can. But I don't like the fact that it's earmarked only for these license plate readers.
Ardmore Police Chief David Hauser defended the technology, stating that the gunshot detectors and license plate readers work in tandem to combat violent crime and locate active gunfire.
And there's nothing else within the department that you can see that's as important as these license plate readers that we could get the grant for. It's just that, or
well, there's plenty of things within the department that we could use. This fits the scope of the Safe Oklahoma grant that combats criminal activity.
The Ardmore City Commission on Monday also approved other public safety measures, including an Ardmore police officer to serve as a school resource officer. Let's wrap up our look at in-depth news with Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele to hear about some stocks of local interest, how they finished up this trading week, right after his Edward Jones Market Snapshot commentary from Friday afternoon.
This is financial advisor Cody Steele from Edward Jones, bringing you the daily financial market report. U.S. equity markets were mixed on Friday as reports indicated that Iran has rejected a new U.S. ceasefire proposal amid ongoing U.S. military strikes on Iranian targets. The S&P 500 finished little changed, while the technology-heavy NASDAQ declined 0.6%, pressured by weakness across the technology sector, particularly among semiconductor stocks. Outside of technology, markets were more resilient, with both the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the Russell Midcap Index posting modest gains. Despite the lack of diplomatic progress, oil eased, with West Texas Intermediate crude falling below $9 a barrel. Even so, crude prices finished the week approximately 9% higher. In addition to geopolitical developments, investors remain focused on trade policy after the U.S. administration announced new global tariffs ranging from 10% to 12.5%. The tariffs took effect overnight, replacing the temporary 10% levies that had been implemented in February. Overseas, Asian markets moved lower amid weakness in technology shares, while European equities closed mostly higher on signs of improving economic activity. The Eurozone S&P Global Composite PMI rose to 51.9 in July, its highest reading in 5 months and the first indication of expansion in 4 months. Similarly, U.S. business activity strengthened in July, with the preliminary composite PMI reaching an 8-month high of 53.6. Treasury yields ended the session slightly lower, with the 10-year Treasury yield falling to 4.68% and the 2-year Treasury yield closing at 4.33%. With the global 10% tariff implemented under Section 122 in February expiring overnight, the U.S. administration announced replacement tariffs yesterday evening of 10% to 12.5%, which are designed to combat forced labor. The newly implemented tariffs took effect overnight under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974. The Section 301 tariffs apply to 60 U.S. trading partners, although certain products, including oil, gas, and fertilizers, are exempt. Additionally, the newly announced tariffs will not stack on top of existing tariffs imposed under Section 232, including those on steel and aluminum imports, while the USMCA-compliant goods will retain their existing exemptions. Given that yesterday's tariff announcement does not represent a meaningful change from the previous Section 122 tariff rate, we expect its economic impact to be limited. However, further trade policy action remains possible. The U.S. is conducting investigations into industrial overproduction in 16 countries and economies including China, Japan, and the European Union. Separately, on Monday evening, the U.S. announced a 50% tariff on approximately $20 billion of Canadian goods, set to take effect in August. The upshot is that yesterday's announcement is unlikely to materially alter the near-term economic outlook because they largely preserve the existing tariff baseline, in our view. Trade policy uncertainty may still weigh on investment among affected businesses, but we do not expect a return to the more disruptive tariff environment of spring 2025. Following Alphabet's earnings announcement Wednesday night, technology earnings and spending trends will remain in focus over the coming week, with Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and Apple all scheduled to report. The technology-heavy NASDAQ fell more than 2% yesterday following Alphabet's decision to raise its full-year capital expenditure guidance, as investors appeared increasingly focused on the tangible returns generated by the substantial AI investment. Investors' focus on earnings growth has meant that this year's equity market gains have been driven by expectations for stronger earnings rather than valuation expansion. In fact, while we would not characterize this market as cheap, the NASDAQ 100 trades at a modest discount to its 10-year average forward price-to-earnings multiple. Looking ahead, earnings growth is expected to remain solid this year, with the S&P 500 projected to see a full-year earnings growth of 28%, with positive contribution from all 11 sectors and led by energy, technology, and communication services. In our view, AI remains a durable investment theme, but diversification remains critical. As part of our opportunistic equity sector guidance, we favor industrials, which could benefit from improving manufacturing activity, as well as continued infrastructure and defense spending. We pair this cyclical exposure with communication services, providing participation in the AI investment theme. Today, U.S. equities closed higher. The Dow closed up 235 points, or 0.45%, at 51,947. The NASDAQ closed down 162 points, or 0.64%, at 24,976. The S&P 500 closed up 4 points, or 0.05%, at 7,412. And in the bond market, 10-year Treasury yields were trading at 4.68%, lower by 0.02 percentage points. In stocks of local interest on Friday, Walmart was up $1.07 to $109.47 a share. Dollar General was up $2.07 to $117.23 a share. Dollar Tree was up $2.80 to $120.45 a share. OG&E was up 34 cents to $49.95 a share. ExxonMobil was up 5 cents to $156.94 a share. Devon was down 25 cents to $45.04 a share. Best Buy was up $1 to $85.43 a share. And lastly, Valero was down $2.76 to $302.50 a share. In commodity markets on Friday, the price of crude oil was down $2.86, or 3.1%, at $89.30 a barrel. And the spot price of gold was up $6.30, or 0.16%, to $4,056.50 an ounce. This has been today's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cody Steele, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 333 West Main Street, Suite 275 in Ardmore, Oklahoma. If you would like additional information, please contact me at 580-223-3870. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
Does your group or organization have a public event coming up? Every single episode of This Week in Ardmore wraps up with the schedule to help give listeners an idea of a few things happening around town in the coming weeks. Email your event details to connect@ardmoreleader.com or give me a call, 319-9688, and tell me all about it. Stick around, the schedule is coming right up, but right now, this week's podcast is sponsored by Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall right here in downtown Ardmore. When you find yourself looking for a birthday gift, anniversary present, something you're just not going to find at a big box store, head over to 105 East Main Street and browse what over 70 vendors have to offer at Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall. Vintage decor, furniture, jewelry, antique tools, collectibles, 105 East Main Street. You can also find them on Facebook or online at ardmoreemporiumantiques.com. Big thanks again to Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall for helping Ardmore Leader advance local news. All right, let's make this fast. Call or text us, 580-319-9688. That's if you have questions about what we're doing, if you have something you want Ardmore to know about, or maybe you want to promote your business and be a supporter of an independent source of accurate, verified local news and information. You can also submit your letters to the editor by finding the opinion section of our website, ardmoreleader.com. You can also email me contributions, news tips, even a voice note if you want to be on the podcast. Connect@ardmoreleader.com. As we wrap up This Week in Ardmore, let's take a look at the schedule. If your group or organization has a public event coming up, let me know by calling or texting 319-9688 or emailing connect@ardmoreleader.com. In public meetings next week, the Carter County Commission will hold their regular meeting on Monday morning, July 27th at 9 a.m. at the County Administration Building on the corner of A Street and Broadway here in downtown Ardmore. That agenda is now available on the county's website, cartercountyok.us. Enrollment for families in the Plainview School District is scheduled for next week, July 30th. That in-person enrollment event will be for new and returning students to turn in required documents, including things like immunization records and proof of residency. A birth certificate for every child will also be required. That Plainview enrollment event happening on Thursday, July 30th from 12 noon until 8 p.m. at the district's activity center. And just a reminder, both Ardmore and Plainview school districts will be resuming their classes next month on Thursday, August 13th. HFE Wilson Community Center is getting ready for their Back to School Bash. Their annual Back to School Bash currently scheduled for Monday, August 10th. For more information, you can reach out to HFE Wilson Community Center, 319-5350. Don't forget Food Truck Friday happening every Friday this summer here in Depot Park in downtown Ardmore. Catch up with neighbors, you can visit some downtown merchants, and then grab a bite to eat from some food trucks and other vendors in the park. The Food Truck Friday, hosted by the Ardmore Main Street Authority, happening every Friday from 11 a.m. until 7 p.m. in Depot Park. If you're looking for some remote work opportunities, an upcoming workshop might be just for you. Join Work Ready Ardmore coming up on Wednesday, July 29th from noon until 1 p.m. for a workshop that might help you find and keep that right remote job. Happening at 1420 Veterans Boulevard coming up on Wednesday, July 29th at noon. And Ardmore Parks and Recreation wraps up Parks and Rec Month with their final Drip event on Thursday, July 30th from 10 until noon. Head over to Walker Park and expect to get soaked in the water balloon fight, or maybe stay on the sidelines, enjoy a popsicle, and watch the chaos unfold. Keep an eye on the Ardmore Parks and Recreation Department's Facebook page for any last-minute park changes. I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thank you for downloading episode 72 of This Week in Ardmore. Follow us online, ardmoreleader.com, or on social media. And until next Friday, I hope you have a positive week ahead.